A few days ago, I drove up to West Point to drop my son off for a week of summer camp. No, he's not planning on going there, but they do offer a free STEM themed week, and it was free. So, yeah, um, yeah, we went up there. I showed him around before he checked in for the camp, and we even took a photo at the altar where me and his mom got married 17 years and 1 day ago. She told me to keep her face and her children's face up off this man's internet, so I blurred both of them in this footage. I tried to record something witty while I was sitting here with some little high school kids in the background, but it didn't come out that well. So here's me sitting there, and see the reason why I'm making this video is because I realize there's considerable overlap in the audience from this channel and my other channel, Black in Time. I tried to craft that channel into a celebration of resiliency, perseverance, and progress in the relatively recent African American past. Episodes usually center around a magazine article written by Black people anywhere from like 30 to 60 years ago, as a way to sort of examine how we viewed ourselves in the past. I thought that being at West Point would be the perfect time to introduce my other channel with this video that I made about General Benjamin O. Davis almost 2 years ago. He's West Point's first bona fide Black war hero. They named a barracks building in his honor just a few years ago, and I was hoping to look at it and get some footage of it, but now that I'm retired and not in uniform, I can't just walk around that place without violating a couple of rules, and since I just gave them my son for the week, I decided violating rules wasn't really in my best interest. So I recorded from a distance, and see, that's about as close as I can get. But if you want a closer look at that building, there's a YouTube video with a better close-up. I'll put that link in the description as well. So anyway, if you like what you see in this episode, subscribe to my other channel, Black in Time. The link will also be in the description. And thank you for watching. And on with the episode. Welcome back for episode 2 of Black in Time. This time around, I'm reviewing Ebony magazine from March of 1960. The cover of this magazine features Major General Benjamin O. Davis Jr. And for those that don't know, this man is a bona fide American war hero. He was the first black graduate of West Point in 47 years at the time that he graduated in 1936. During that 4-year period, he withstood attempts to make him quit just because he was African American. It was called silencing. This is where every other cadet at the academy doesn't speak to you unless they have official business. No friends, nobody to go to dinner with, lunch with, no teammates who want to talk to you. He was the only African American at the academy. This was their way of trying to make him leave. I don't know why they bothered to admit him, but they did. Possibly because his father was the only African American general in history. And perhaps his father's rank encouraged them to allow him to come. Now I need you to understand the significance of this burden. This was all-out psychological warfare waged by an institution against a single man, and he prevailed. In many ways, I believe that he prevailed because he believed that his failure would be considered a failure of black people, all black people, not just him. And so he endured this. And if you really think about it, for anybody who's watching this video, well, any African American watching this video, he endured this for both you and me. So when we learn about individuals like this, we need to ask ourselves, how much have we really endured individually? Is it really that hard for us to succeed right now? What have those who came before us dealt with? So he took all this punishment. He graduated in 1936 as the 4th graduate of the United States Military Academy. He graduated 35th in his class of 276 cadets. He was preceded by Henry O. Flipper in 1877, the very first black graduate of West Point, John Hanks Alexander in 1887, and Charles Young in 1889. And from 1889 until he arrived in 1932, they did not admit any African Americans. As I said, his father is Benjamin O. Davis Sr., the very first Negro general, as they used to call them, in the entire United States military. And at the time of this publication in 1960, General Benjamin O. Davis was the highest-ranked black general ever in the United States military. He led the Tuskegee Airmen in Italy as a commander of the 99th Fighter Squadron, 332nd Fighter Group. This unit performed extremely well and inspired 2 movies and a legendary reputation for all the black pilots in that unit. The only African American in recent history who rivals his importance and level of success was Colin Powell, who rose to prominence during the Gulf War in 1991. You can see he was featured in Ebony magazine many times himself, both on the cover and within its pages. No other black officers experienced this level of celebrity since Colin Powell. He earned a pristine reputation, assignment after assignment, and was relatively famous even before he became a general. Look at this Jet magazine cover from the late 1950s, which asks on the cover, what happened to Colonel Benjamin O. Davis? For reference, I am a lieutenant colonel as I'm recording this, only 3 years from becoming a colonel myself, and I guarantee there's no magazine on earth that would question what happened to me. Alright? So understand that this man's reputation, this man's legend, was extraordinary for that time. I say all this so that you can appreciate just how much of a great performer this man must have been. At his funeral in 2002, President Clinton would say, General Davis is here today as proof that a person can overcome adversity and discrimination, achieve great things, turn skeptics into believers, and through the example of perseverance, one person can bring truly amazing change. That's what this man meant. But this article is from 1960, long before Bill Clinton ever became president. The article also talks about the new brand of racial integration in the United States Air Force. Apparently, the United States Air Force thought it was best to try integration overseas in Europe before bringing it back to the United States, because then they wouldn't have to deal with all the external forces acting on the U.S. Air Force, trying to enforce racial norms. And so it had sort of a rosy sound to it. They emphasized situations where hardened racists became staunch supporters of high-performing black officers. And it makes me wonder if the Air Force didn't write this story itself. But for whatever reason, the story took the most positive interpretation of all events. And it seemed to highlight the situations where people who had very strong racist beliefs saw black officers performing and changed their beliefs. Now, what stands out to me about this magazine, and even all of the Ebony and Jet magazine articles from the 1950s and 60s, is just how much attention was given to the military, black men and women who performed well within the ranks. This is very different from today. See, today military service gets a thank you for your service, but it does not get this exalted level of praise as you see in the pages of Jet and Ebony magazine from the 1950s and 60s. And in some ways this makes a lot of sense. In the 1960s, especially in 1959, World War II was not very long ago, and its heroes were very much at the forefront of people's minds. You see, the black heroes of World War II had literally saved the world from the Nazis alongside Americans of all colors. Everyone who had participated in World War II was a hero to everyone. And at this time, 1960, the Korean War was less than a decade in the past. Now, in the modern era, military conflicts do not seem as closely tied to the fate of the world. And for the average American, they're mostly just distant skirmishes that have little to do with their daily lives. Most do seem to understand that sacrifice is involved, and they're generally thankful. But there's not this level of attention given to America's black soldiers, airmen, Marines. Now, next in this very same issue, there was an article highlighting the career of Della Reese, a singer. At this time, she was selling over 1 million records from her debut album, and she was on her way to selling 1 million records in her second album. Now, for me, Della Reese is an actress known for playing strong, grandmotherly roles on television and movies. Think Harlem Nights, The A-Team, Touched by an Angel, and even a short-lived series called The Royal Family with Red Fox. I had no idea that Della Reese had ever even been a singer. As many of you guys know, there are many routes to becoming a Hollywood star. There's Broadway actresses, stand-up comedians, rappers, singers, even YouTubers. Her route was that of a singer. So apparently she had much success as a singer, and that brought her into the public consciousness and into Hollywood circles, which eventually put her on television and in movies by the time she was, well, in her 50s. They don't really say too much special about her. They just kind of show the life of Della Reese up close in images and photos, and it's very nice. And you can see that she's an extremely attractive woman, which, not to say like I'm surprised necessarily, but when you see somebody in their 60s, when you, as a child or as a teenager, you come in and you see an actor in their 50s, 60s, 70s, it's not actually natural to think about that person as existing before you see them in that role. That's not how my mind acted anyway. So to see her suddenly in the past and to see people referring to her in the present as she is, that's actually quite enlightening for me. So anyway, those are just two great stories from March 1960, Ebony Magazine, and that is a wrap on today's episode of Black in Time. Tune in tomorrow for another segment of Black news and media from decades past on Black in Time. Like and subscribe.